Hello and welcome to Gate to Wire. I'm Bruce Casella along with Dani Gibson. We have a full house today, folks. That's right. Dick Jerardi's with us and the professor, Marshall Gramm from 10 Strike Racing. Hi, Marshall. Welcome.
Well, it's great to be here. I'm glad to be joining y'all. Looks like we have some Memphis weather that's similar to your weather up in Philadelphia. Unusual for us, maybe fairly usual for y'all.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dick, lead us off, buddy.
So Marshall's a longtime friend. We met in I think the lunchroom at Parx some summers ago. I'm not sure exactly when anymore. Marshall, of course, was the leading owner at Parx in 2016 and 2017. Now he has 10 straight racing. And for the people that don't know, he's a Rice graduate, also got his PhD at Texas A&M as a professor in economics at Rhodes College in Memphis, and the 2020 Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge winner, among many other honors. Great contest player, great player in general. Marshall, 10 Strike and Parx, you've been synonymous with the track. What is it about Parx that attracted you to come up here so many years ago?
Well, part of it was by chance that I was interested in a claiming prospect, broodmare prospect named Ant Dot Dot. This is many years ago, 2009. I had been following the horse as it fell in the claiming ranks, and I saw it was available for $5,000. I got hooked up to claim the horse with Donnie White, a trainer who since passed, and was able to claim the horse. Won a three-way shake and turned down $10,000 on a $5,000 claim, and could have walked away a winner right away. In fact, it's something that now, if I ever, someone ever offered me twice the claim price, I'd probably take it. But I ended up keeping the mare. And not only did the mare become a foundation mare for me, but it also started my long relationship with Parx. For an owner kind of at my level, Parx is a great racing scene. It's a very competitive. It's primarily dirt racing. From the home base at Parx, you can ship and compete anywhere in the Mid-Atlantic. So if you get a really nice horse, not only do you have your allowance races and stakes races at Parx, but you can go up to New York, you can go down to the Mid-Atlantic, you can go to New Jersey. It has a great claiming competition, and has a consistent condition book, which I really love. So I found very much a home here. My trainer, Carlos Guerrero, is like family. We've had horses together for a decade. So again, I consider, Parx in part a home track for me, even though I live in Memphis, Tennessee.
Danny?
Well, even more importantly, all the success you've had on the track, what you do off the track with these horses. And I was telling Danielle Montgomery of Turning for Home that I was going to talk to you, and she was like, you have to thank him publicly. You've been such a huge supporter in Turning for Home, raising money, donating money, and giving really quality horses to the program. Why is it so important, and how essential has the program been, knowing that puts you at ease when your horses retire?
Well, I think aftercare, what happens to a horse's career next is really important. I think that people don't necessarily know that horses, they could live to be 30 into their 30s. And so racing just represents a small part of their careers, and most of them need second jobs. They're not really, they want to work, they want to do
Yeah.
things. And look, Turning for Home is a model program. It was the first program in retirement. It's affiliated with the track. They'll take any horse off the track. And so it's a program that, is really a great program, a model for the industry. Every track ought to have a program like it. And others have moved in that direction. And so I've been a longtime supporter and so happy with what they've done, how they've taken care of my horses, how they've been able to able to help us retire horses, and just to go on and see those horses do other things. I've had many retired race horses who, their new owners will send me updates, and they'll compete in thoroughbred makeovers, do hunter jumper stuff. And so it's a model program, and it's one I'm glad to see others are copying and adapting. So it's so great that Parx could be a first mover in that.
Marshall, tell me about the name 10 Strike. Give us some background on why you chose that.
Well, initially, when we started doing a partnership, my partners and I, we got together in 2015 and thought about buying a group of 2-year-olds in training together to put together a partnership. And so we initially ran under all of our last names, Gramm, Sanders, Petrangelo, etc. And it just became a licensing nightmare and an administrative nightmare. Even just getting your money from the bookkeeper became a challenge. And so we decided to run under a partnership. We named the partnership 10 Strike Racing. 10 Strike was the inaugural winner of the Tennessee Derby. This is in 1883, and the Tennessee Derby was run at Montgomery Park, which is in Memphis, Tennessee, at the Memphis Fairgrounds, which is about a mile away from where I live. It's where where currently the Liberty Bowl is played, where Liberty Bowl Stadium is played. And again, that's not far from where I live. We have a Memphis connection, and so that's how we ended up naming our partnership. And we now have on our partnership horses, which are generally our yearlings and 2-year-olds that there's some New York horses, some Arkansas horses. We have 30 to 50 partners on those horses and enjoy playing that part of the game. That part of the game is definitely a consumption activity and not for the faint of heart. And so this way it allows all of our partners and all of us really to split up a small piece of a lottery ticket, right? When you buy a yearling or a 2-year-old, you might get anything, right? Anything being a Derby winner or a horse that may never make a start at the racetrack. So it allows us to kind of roll the dice where if I was doing this alone or Clay Sanders and I, who are the founding partners, if it were just the two of us, we might have been able to only buy a horse or two. For the claiming, I do a lot of that on my own at Parx. I have a partner, Corey Molis from New York, and we love to source our claims and love to play the claiming game here. Claiming is really like an extension of gambling, right?
Yeah.
Instead of just betting a horse and having it for a minute to 12 seconds, you get to have it. You get to have it progress over its career. You get to trade it with one another, and so it's a different way to make a gamble, and it's a fun intellectual affair. It's got limited downside and limited upside, and so and it's so that's a different part of the game that I enjoy playing. I'm also a breeder. I have some Pennsylvania breds and I own some stallions too. So I like to dip my toe in every part of the game.
Marshall, how did you get into this? I know you grew up in Washington, D.C. Your dad was a U.S. Senator, for the people that don't know, but what attracted you to horse racing?
I just was attracted to the numbers. I grew up a sports page kid, and the Washington Post had a full page devoted to horse racing. They had all the charts and all the entries. Andy Beyer wrote a column on horse racing, and he's a great writer, obviously the founder of Beyer Speed Figures, but a great writer. And I think I think I miss great sports writing. And so because, I looked at this page with all these numbers, a lot of, boys get into baseball because of all the statistics. I got into horse racing. I bought books, became hooked. My dad always thought it'd be a passing phase, but I kept with it. I ended up going and getting my PhD in economics and realized at some point I was doing my research on banking regulation, really dull stuff, and realized there's a sort of broad research agenda to be had by looking at betting markets and horse racing in finance, econ, and psychology. So I both turned my interest into a gambling hobby, but also a research agenda as an economist. And so I have a dozen papers that are published on, tangentially on horse racing, but specifically on uh, financial markets, betting markets.
And you teach a course in efficiency of parimutuel wagering, do
In
you
fact,
not?
I'm teaching it this semester. So I'm teaching it for the first time since 2022, and it's a great challenge. I have students who walk in the class who don't even know how to read the odds. So
Oh,
we
yeah.
start at the beginning and then work our way through. We read the racing form, and then again we connect it to economics. We do some economic modeling. I do an economic modeling of race pace, and then we talk about small sample size decision making. Uh, and so there's a lot we do that we tie to economics, but ultimately it's also about handicapping horses. So it's a lot of fun. It's a half credit course, so it's worth half a course, and I have 38 students a semester. Really excited to get it rolling. In fact, when you guys call, I'm working on my one of my uploaded lectures.
Well, how cool too, because you can apply it to your own stable and they can kind of follow along. And I'd love to ask you too. So, like you said, you do dip your toe in a lot of things, and get to see all your Parx runners, but you're running up in New York with Michelle G and Julio. I see with Lindsay Schultz. How do you pick your trainers?
So I'm looking for trainers that love racing, are hungry. I tend to look for trainers who are, who are getting started out. It's so hard nowadays with certain large trainers having so many horses, right? So many horses go to the same trainers who are excellent.
Yeah.
I don't begrudge any of them, and I totally understand their business. But we've been looking to help out younger trainers who are hungry, who have the passion for the sport and who work hard. And so, we've been lucky to find some real up and comers who we're excited about. Lindsay Schultz is one. She had her first winner for us. Michelle G and Julio, who is Carlos's niece by marriage.
Yep.
She had our first winner for us. Matt Shire, we have horses with. We've had horses with Bentley Combs, Mark Sims, Brittany Russell. I mean, we had horses with Brittany Russell when she was just starting out in Maryland, and really with Brad Cox, we were with Brad before Brad had his first Grade One winner when Brad had one barn.
Yeah.
So we're looking for the next Brad Cox, and we're trying to give younger trainers an upper hand and see what they can do, and still have and still have some horses with the old reliables like Carlos Guerrero.
Yeah. Love
How many
that.
horses do you have, Marshall?
Right now, I can give you an exact number. Right now, I have 89 horses.
Woo.
Now, not all of those are horses in training. Maybe they're about 40 in training, and then I have bloodstock and stallions and horses on the farm, 2-year-olds that will be at the track sooner than we realize, but probably about 40 in training. Have horses stable at Oak Lawn, at the fairgrounds, at Parx, and at Belmont right now.
Go ahead, Dick.
Yeah, Marshall, you were in the Preakness a couple of years ago. We had dinner a couple of nights before in Little Italy. How much would you love to get a horse to be back in one of those big, big races?
Yeah, I would. I mean, I'd love to. That's sort of what you dream about in getting a horse, and I realize in doing that also is that you savor every victory, even winning a single beat nickel is a thrill that I cherish. But getting one that just gets on the trail like that is exciting. We had a filly this year named Agrippina who broke her maiden on opening day at Oaklawn as a 2-year-old filly. And she ran a 75 Beyer and galloped out really well. And so when that happens, when you have a 2-year-old that wins a race, it's at this point you start to dream. And I'm totally willing to dream because, this sport is so hard. There's so many things that have to go right. I mean, here even we had this weather at Oaklawn that's closed the track for 4 days. I mean, those little things cause setbacks for the major races that you're hoping to shoot for. So yeah, I would love to get back, but we have horses now that we're excited about that may get to a stakes race. But even winning a race like the Mrs. Claus this year at Parx,
About well time, yeah.
even now I've gotten to the point where winning a stakes race in and of itself is a major accomplishment and is super exciting to be able to achieve.
Any more questions?
Yeah, I just have one more. Marshall, you've been handicapping for many years. DJ's been handicapping for many years. Do you guys share tricks, or are you always learning from other top handicappers, or do you kind of have your system and that's it?
No, I don't think there's any doubt that you're always learning. And I would say that I'm a different handicapper than I was 5 years ago and certainly 15 years ago. In some ways, it's very easy now in that information acquisition is so easy to get to like a reasonable point to get to kind of
Yeah.
where I am now. Just doesn't take as long because there's so much information out there. There's so many people on social media. There's so many YouTube videos out there. When Dick and I were, starting out, there was, this doesn't exist. You had to learn by fire. You had to learn by making bets. And it's just not the same. Reading a book and actually making bets is a lot different. But now I think that with the podcasts, even with what you all do, with the watching the racing broadcasts and how informative they are, you can learn the game really quickly.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big difference. But no, I'm certainly always evolving as a player, and the game is also changed for the worse, right? There's the computer teams shift the odds around, so there are things that make it more challenging. And so I'm learning from them and how they make their wagers and trying to incorporate, some of their technology into my game as well. So it's always a learning process. And it's not a zero sum game. It's a negative sum game because of the takeout, right? So there's going to be less money redistributed than the money that we all bet. And so if you don't evolve, you become extinct pretty fast, especially in this game. So it's one where we're always learning.
Yeah, Danny, when Marshall and I are playing in the same contest, we won't share information before, but we'll text each other during the contest. Hey, good play, go for it.
Yeah,
Like if I
that's what I
can't
was
win, I hope you
wondering.
do. Yeah, because we've certainly been in a lot of contests together. I always look down. There's usually a half a dozen people I know, but Marshall always number one, see how he's doing, and I'm sure he does the same thing for me.
Well, and we always, we'll a lot of times talk afterwards
Yep.
and figure out why we liked horses. And it's always interesting to hear someone talk about why they like the horse, where they got the idea, and you learn a lot from that. And I think that's, we take for granted the fact that, it's a game where, we look at these one races with this information, but it's really trying to put it all together, trying to put a story together, trying to track these horses over time, and that's the key. I do think nowadays more than ever, it's finding the right horse at the right time, picking your
Yeah. Oh,
spots and making your
agreed.
bet, right? It's just the game has gotten a lot tougher, but there's still nothing better than a horse race. Nothing at all.
No.
Agreed. Agreed. Final question. Tell the people that are watching today how they can get involved with 10 Strike.
Well, if they'd like to get involved with 10 Strike, we have a website, 10strikeracing.com, where our contact information is there. They can drop us off an email. Again, we put together partnerships mainly focused on yearlings and 2-year-olds. We've got one right now. It's our 13th partnership, and we put these every year, right? So every year, so this is the 13th time we've assembled a group of 2-year-olds. Now they're 2-year-olds that'll hit the racetrack, and you never know what you might get. We had Almost Gone Rocket was in our 10th group, and she turned out to be a stakes winner, and we sold her at the end of her career for 1.2 million. We had Warriors Charge who went to the Preakness. He was in our 5th group. We had Lady Rocket, who is in the Breeders' Cup. She was in our 7th group. So you never know what we might get. Sometimes we get groups that are complete duds. But I will say to anyone who's interested in ownership of horse racing, in owning horse races, there's no bigger thrill than watching a horse cross the finish line first. But it ultimately is a consumption activity. It has to be fun, and you have to love it, and you have to go to the races because it is. We talk about betting on horses being a negative sum game. Owning horses is not for the faint of heart. It's definitely a
No.
consumption activity. There's no, we might get lucky and make money if we get a superstar, but it's a struggle. But again, there's no one who owns horses that doesn't have fun doing it and doesn't love doing it and doesn't learn a lot more about the races. So if you'd like 1%, let me know.
Yeah.
There you go. All right, that's going to do it for this week on Gate to Wire. Marshall, thank you so much for joining us today.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.